New today, Democratic Senator from Connecticut Chris Murphy believes he knows how Democrats can win back working class voters. And it starts with the new polling memo he is circulating, which was first reported by Punchbowl News. It says Democrats need to be talking more about, quote, why corporations and billionaires have too much and why Democrats are the only party that is serious about putting that power back in the hands of workers. Joining us now, Lieutenant Governor of New York, Antonio Delgado. And we have you on because you have your own op-ed about this out as well. And you're talking about how specifically Democrats have stopped addressing working class voters.
Yes.
And not even just working class voters. You talk about the state of New York and what happened in this election in this state. Explain.
Well, I think it's important to understand that when we're talking about the real threat to democracy and why people, particularly individuals and communities that have been on the margins, are checking out, is because they're experiencing a sustained level of economic inequality, where they're seeing a lot of concentrated wealth, and they're living all around it. And yet their lives and what they're experiencing day in and day out aren't getting any better. The top 1% of this country right now owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. The top 1% owns more wealth than the entire middle class. The first time in this country's history, 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That is a lived experience that is happening in folks' lives every single day. And we as Democrats are the ones who've been talking about championing economic inequality, talking about trying to fight for collective bargaining and the like. And yet, when it comes to effective change that is impacting people's lives, the numbers aren't changing. I was literally just a couple of days ago, I went down to do a turkey giveaway for Common Pantry. I could not tell you how devastating it was to see the line around the block, hundreds of people. In midday, there, white, black, Asian, Latino, young, old, everything in between, with kids, midday, lining up right here in New York City for food to feed their families, surrounded by wealth.
Yeah.
The contrast speaks for itself. And if we don't get to the heart of that issue, then people are going to rightfully so say, what does it mean to live in a democracy? That's the threat.
This is a democratically run city. It is a democratically run state. Been that way for a long time. Bloomberg was an independent. When people are looking around and they're saying, I don't think either party works for me, do the Democrats have an argument against that? Do they have a valid argument?
I think it's
Can they point to something and say, here's what I've done for you when you're talking about lines around the street like you just mentioned?
I think it's a combination of factors. I think we've defined who we are without ultimately following through on the action.
So it's all talk is what you're saying.
So a lot of times it ends up being empty rhetoric. And there's a lot of money that might get labeled for X, Y, and Z that sounds good on paper. But ultimately, what is it doing in the community? How is it reaching into the community? And here's the key. Are we connected to those individuals in the community? Make sure that we know that if we put money with a nonprofit or with a community center or with an individual or a group of folks who are doing good work, it's actually going to have the impact that is desired.
How do you cut through the red tape and get things changed? How do you change housing regulations in this city? How do you make sure that sanitation picks up the trash?
Yeah.
How do you fundamentally change the quality of life people both here in New York City but also in New York State?
Coalition build from the ground up. A lot of times,
well,
this is something
mean?
It means not taking your cues from individuals who have the means to dictate where and when and how you spend your time. It means actually going into the communities, figuring out who are the stakeholders on the ground, including everybody, include all of the industry folks, include all the folks who are making these decisions, from the most wealthy to those who don't have the most, and make sure that there's a table of folks across there that you're being informed by, that you could make an informed decision as a leader to figure out how to move forward. What happens is when we start making these decisions from a place where only those folks who have the means and the resources to get the time to sit down with you and say, we believe you should do X, Y, and Z, then the way you make that decision ultimately gets imbalanced.
You talk about that Democrats need to be willing to challenge the systems and institutions that have caused Americans to lose faith in government. The institutions themselves don't function all that smoothly. Do you think government bureaucracy is bloated and there needs to be cuts?
No question. And this is part of the problem. Government, and the question around big government versus small government, a lot of this is not about the size of government often, it's about who does government work for? Who owns government? Who's telling government how to work?
Are you saying that's lobbyists in the billionaire class?
I think they have a very, very outsized role in how decisions get made. That doesn't change the fact, though, separate and apart from that, that the way government works from a process standpoint oftentimes can get in its own way. When I go down into certain communities and I try to figure out why we're not able to meet the need of food insecurity, and I hear, well, we have to make sure that we cross this T and dot this I, and if we could only do this, maybe it can get to us faster. That's big government getting in the way of itself. And oftentimes, when it comes to those who are less fortunate, we make it harder for the folks who need it the most to actually access it. And the folks who have the means, we don't make it as hard. So it's important to see how we're actually compounding the problem with big government when it comes to actually helping the people who need it. The other part that I think is important is making sure that we leverage small government. When I was in Congress, I introduced the Direct Support for Communities Act, which makes sure that federal aid got directly to our counties, to our towns, our municipalities, irrespective of population, to make sure that they could provide meaningful services to their constituents during the pandemic. Before that, there was a population threshold that all of my constituents, because I was in a very rural district, none of them met. And so they were literally trying to survive the pandemic without any federal assistance until that formula came through. What I learned, though, is when you actually empower folks on the ground, the mayors, the supervisors, the county executives, Republicans, independents, Democrats, it doesn't matter. Those are the folks who are informed, know what the needs are of those communities, and you make it a streamlined process for them. They're better capable of meeting the needs of the people than us up top trying to figure out how to leverage those resources. Empower folks on the ground, make sure that they have what they need, and then get out of the way.
There's a gubernatorial election coming up. You going to be running?
Me?
Yeah.
Now, right now, my focus is on right now, what is going on in New York, what is going on across this country. We have a lot of work to do. We got to make sure that we get this right. And it's certainly my focus.
Lieutenant Governor Anthony Delgado, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate having you in studio.
Thank you.